A brand new electric car rolls off an assembly line in a massive factory in Shenzhen, China. It immediately gets a domestic license plate. The paperwork gets filed in a municipal office. Then, like hours later, that same car gets shoved onto a cargo ship bound for the Middle East, categorized entirely as a used vehicle on the shipping manifest.
BYD just cut production for the second consecutive month. That marks the first back-to-back drop since the 2020 pandemic lockdowns. Our mission for you on this deep dive involves mapping the gap between the explosive global sales narrative of Chinese automakers and the bizarre market manipulations propping those numbers up, drawing directly from reports by Electriv, Michael West, and Auto Evolution.
Reading these global auto statistics feels like checking your bank app and seeing a massive deposit, only to realize the bank mistakenly credited you with someone else's mortgage payment. The numbers look incredible on the screen, like your net worth spiked, but the underlying reality involves a massive accounting error waiting to correct itself.
Exporting 436,000 used passenger and commercial vehicles in 2024 tells a completely different story when you realize roughly 90% of those had 0 miles on the odometer.
Wait, 90%? They are fresh from the factory floor, getting a stamp of domestic registration just so someone can immediately revoke it.
Great Wall Motors CEO Wei Jianjun publicly called out this practice during an interview with Sina Finance, labeling an unnamed rival the Evergrande of the auto industry.
Calling someone the Evergrande of the sector guarantees absolute chaos in Asian financial markets. Evergrande built entire cities of empty skyscrapers just to satisfy government growth charts on paper. You could drive for hours past towering apartment blocks where nobody lived. The concrete was poured simply to hit a metric. Wei Jianjun is basically accusing his competition of building ghost fleets.
Buying thousands of tickets to your own concert just to declare a sold-out stadium tour and then dumping the tickets in a landfill functions on the exact same logic. Regional Chinese governments demand these numbers to hit Beijing's economic targets.
Wait, a dealership is an independent business. If I build a heavy, expensive machine and then immediately kneecap its retail value by stamping it used, I go bankrupt. Dumping inventory at cost usually destroys a manufacturer.
Hitting artificial targets triggers massive manufacturer bonuses for these dealerships. The end-of-year corporate volume bonus covers the loss. They purchase the cars from the manufacturer, officially logging the sale on the books. Then they take the financial hit on selling a car at a massive discount overseas.
Oh, so the volume bonus reimburses them for the export loss. A local mayor gets a promotion for hitting the quota, and a dealership owner gets a corporate payout. Every participant ignores the impending systemic collapse because the short-term incentives are simply too lucrative.
Getting these ghost fleets off the mainland requires massive physical holding lots and transport trucks. Export docks must handle hundreds of thousands of vehicles that nobody specifically ordered. The environmental cost of shipping a zero-mileage electric car halfway around the world negates the carbon savings of the vehicle itself.
Moving unused assets across the ocean requires fleets of diesel transport trucks. Massive cargo ships burn heavy fuel oil just to facilitate the illusion. Once these cars land overseas, they sort of morph into a completely different type of financial weapon.
Importers brought 50,918 BYD vehicles into Australia in the first 9 months of the year, according to the Federal Chamber of Motive Industries, but only sold 37,923.
That leaves a surplus of 13,000 cars sitting in holding lots, baking in the sun. Acres and acres of vehicles with weeds growing through the tires and paint fading in the scorching heat.
Tesla imported 22,355 cars into Australia over that same period and sold 22,653. Operating on a standard just-in-time delivery model prevents holding inventory that costs millions in storage fees and physical depreciation.
Piling up 13,000 unsold vehicles requires a conscious strategy to ignore basic supply and demand. BYD generates regulatory credits under the new vehicle efficiency standard simply by unloading metal onto a dock.
The Australian carbon credit scheme accounts for units based on imports, not actual consumer sales. The vehicle never has to reach a driveway.
Making up to $7,050 per unsold car sitting in a port feels like getting a massive year-end bonus for buying office supplies and leaving them in the trunk of your car. You never actually use the pens and paper, but the accounting department keeps cutting you checks for being productive.
Legacy automakers hand over cash to BYD to buy those carbon credits. This financial transaction allows the legacy automaker to keep selling diesel-guzzling trucks to construction fleets in Sydney.
BYD claims this stockpile exists to meet exploding demand. Generating massive carbon credits off vehicles doing absolutely zero driving turns a climate initiative into a parking lot monetization scheme.
The total carbon output remains entirely unaffected. Piling thousands of cars into Australian ports points directly back to the domestic production cuts we mentioned at the start. The financial gymnastics fail to cover up a brutal reality on the factory floor.
You know the machinery slows down eventually. August saw a 3.8% production drop, producing exactly 353,090 vehicles, following a July decline.
Individual factories cut shifts. Planned construction of new production lines faces indefinite postponement because the domestic market cannot absorb the output.
Global sales numbers ticked up slightly due to aggressive expansion in Europe, masking the decay at the core. Sales inside China fell 14.3% year-over-year, down to 292,813 vehicles.
4 out of 5 BYD cars are still sold in China. Plug-in hybrids specifically tanked by 22.7% compared to the previous year, marking the 5th month in a row PHEV sales fell below the 2024 figure.
The domestic price war resembles two restaurants across the street from each other, slashing the price of a burger until they are both paying the customers to eat there. Both businesses eventually run out of cash to subsidize the battle.
Chinese consumers know the prices drop every month. This incentivizes them to delay their purchases indefinitely.
A buyer will not spend $30,000 today if they believe the identical car will cost $25,000 next month. Everyone is standing in the showroom, staring at the sticker price, waiting for the manufacturer to blink and offer another $5,000 discount.
Beijing stepped in to stop the bleeding. The Chinese Industrial Supervisory Authority publicly disclosed EV subsidy fraud running from 2016 to 2020, explicitly naming BYD.
The People's Daily openly condemned the price wars. When the People's Daily prints something in China, you are not reading an op-ed, you are hearing a direct megaphone from Beijing. It functions as a policy mandate wrapped in a newspaper.
Russia issued a government decree in 2023 to ban zero-mileage imports from brands that already have official distributors in the country. They explicitly targeted Chery, Chang'an, Geely, and Exceed.
The Russian government is protecting the authorized supply chain from being cannibalized by the Chinese manufacturer's own shadow inventory. Local automotive sectors cannot compete with state-sponsored dumping.
Missing a 5.5 million unit target by 600,000 vehicles represents a catastrophic miss for a company valued on exponential growth. Financial forecasters, including China Merchants Bank International, slashed expectations down to 4.9 million.
The factories cannot simply turn off the machines without causing massive layoffs. The regional governments cannot accept the drop in economic output without facing political consequences. After 8 months, they sit at just 52% of that aggressive corporate target.
If the world's aggressive carbon reduction targets are being met on paper by fleets of electric cars rusting in overseas holding lots, the climate isn't actually changing, just the balance sheets.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.